Oh, it's that time. It is my favorite time of the year. Every single year, at least 2 to 3 times a year, I'll make a video about NBA stars who are about to be traded. And lately, trades have been getting a little crazy. We've been seeing teams essentially gutting out their entire futures for the opportunity to acquire a star in their prime, some making more sense than others. So before we get to the content, I'm recording this video for you guys on my birthday. All I want for my birthday is for you guys to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications. And if you want to go the extra mile to get me a little present, you could join our channel memberships program in the description down below, or just enjoy the content. Now that we get all of that out of the way, cue the intro. Gentlemen, I'm sure we all have this issue. You decide to go out with some friends, but you want to take your wallet with you. Your jean pocket is either way too freaking small, or there's this gigantic bulge in your pocket from your wallet being too fat. And bear in mind, I don't really keep a lot of cash on me. It's just the classic wallet just makes you susceptible to pickpocketing and also makes you a target for gold digging women. And that's the whole reason I partnered with the Ridge wallet. This bad boy can hold up to 12 cards and does a fantastic job holding on to your cash. It's a very sleek and slim minimalistic wallet that has over 50,000 5-star reviews. They have over 30 different colors, including burnt titanium and carbon fiber, and most importantly, they have RFID blocking technology that protects you from digital pickpocketers. The Ridge team is so confident that you're gonna love this wallet that they'll let you test drive it for 45 days, and if you don't like it, you can send it back and get your money back. On top of this, they have a really awesome key case that I highly recommend. This key case keeps all of your keys organized so you don't have to deal with a really annoying jingle in your pocket as you're walking around or you're running, and it makes your life significantly easier. And currently they're hooking up my subscribers fat. Right now, when you click on the link in the description down below or go to ridge.com/flight, you'll get 40% off of a Ridge wallet. That's a steal in my opinion. Really worth at least trying it for 45 days because this bad boy changed my life. That's ridge.com/flight to get 40% off on your purchase until December 22nd. And thank you, Ridge, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Kevin Durant, in an interview with Chris B. Haynes, Brooklyn Nets superstar Kevin Durant had this to say about his teammates. Look at our starting lineup: Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, and myself. It's not disrespect, but what are you expecting from that group? You expect us to win because I'm out there. So if you're watching from that lens, you're expecting us to play well because number 7 is out there. A few days later, Kevin Durant would clarify these comments weren't meant in vain, but he meant them as a means to protect his teammates from high expectations, which, if that was his goal, a private one-on-one conversation might have done a lot more good rather than name drop your entire starting 5 on a Bleacher Report interview. I don't know, just some food for thought. It wouldn't be a shock if Kevin Durant actually did want to protect his teammates, and a part of me actually feels that way, but also in the same breath, it wouldn't be a shock if he wanted to trade as well. Kevin Durant clearly feels like the team isn't ready to compete, and the clock is ticking on Kevin Durant's productivity. I know you're looking at LeBron James and his ability to sustain his greatness for the period of time that he's been able to, but Kevin Durant is 34 years old and he's also coming off of an Achilles tear, so we don't know how much longer he'll be able to sustain this level of production for. His contract has him locked up until the end of the 2025 season. Kevin Durant probably wants his prime to be remembered trying to win a championship, not fighting for the last spot in the playoffs. Teams that could acquire Kevin Durant would be few and far between, seeing as Durant wants to be on a potential contender, and only a few teams can even afford to trade for Kevin Durant to begin with. Some of the teams that could acquire Durant would be the 76ers, the Suns, maybe even the New Orleans Pelicans, but the issue remains the same. How many assets do you give up for a 34-year-old superstar like Kevin Durant? Teams aren't going to be willing to part with their young assets in order to get what could potentially be 1 to 2, maybe even 3 years of of a productive Kevin Durant. It doesn't make sense to trade 3 or 4 future first-round picks for a superstar, but from the Brooklyn Nets perspective, they're already depleted of assets. They're not going to give up Kevin Durant for just anyone, and that's why Kevin Durant is currently on the Brooklyn Nets and might be for the rest of the year. But there's a former teammate of his that might be in a different situation. Russell Westbrook is a triple-double machine, a human highlight reel, an athletic anomaly, but no one wants him on their basketball team. The Los Angeles Lakers have struggled so much so to figure out how to utilize Russell Westbrook properly that they decided to bring him off of the bench. Now, Russell Westbrook coming off of the bench this season has averaged nearly 16 points, 5 boards, and 7 assists per game. But for some reason, no NBA team will even come close to him. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Russell Westbrook's cap hit this season is nearly $50 million. That's right, last offseason, the Brody picked up his player option and is owed $47 million by the Los Angeles Lakers. He is without a doubt the most expensive sixth man in NBA history. Another reason NBA teams are reluctant to trade for Westbrook is because after the LeBron and Westbrook experiment didn't just fail but exploded in Los Angeles, teams aren't so sure adding Russell Westbrook to their roster will be a positive because it could even be a negative. Before the season, the Lakers reportedly offered a package to the Spurs, including Russell Westbrook and a lottery protected first-round pick in exchange for Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. However, the Spurs turned that down, citing that they wanted an unprotected pick in exchange for paying Russell Westbrook's full salary for a year, because they intended to simply waive Westbrook. Right now, Russell Westbrook's stock isn't necessarily at an all-time low, but it isn't necessarily what it was when he was leaving Oklahoma City, if you get what I'm saying. So instead of getting compensation back, the Lakers are trying to add picks to get him off their roster. Many speculated that Russell Westbrook could be involved in a trade for Buddy Hield or Myles Turner, but as his stock keeps on nosediving, that seems more and more unlikely. In addition to that, Myles Turner could without a doubt be traded to the Lakers and leave in the offseason after the Lakers have to give up future first-round picks in order to trade for him to begin with. So just like Kevin Durant, this situation is a little sticky, and to be honest, the next player on this list might be just as sticky, because Kyrie Irving's basketball stock is at an all-time low for the simple fact that in 4 seasons with the Brooklyn Nets, he has just played in 113 games compared to the 127 that he played in Boston in just 2 seasons. This is even more mind-boggling when you consider the fact that he also sustained an injury when he was with the Boston Celtics as well. So the Brooklyn Nets have entertained moving on from both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, indicating that they want to try and blow up their team of stars in order to try to recoup some of the draft capital they spent in the first place. Unlike some of the previous players on this list, Kyrie Irving isn't in his mid-30s. In fact, he just turned 30 and has plenty of prime years ahead of him, meaning that whichever team wants to pull the trigger on Kyrie Irving probably intends to keep him around for the long term. But that's the problem. Kyrie Irving is without a doubt one of the most talented basketball players we've ever seen in NBA history. The problem with him is he's a little volatile in terms of his behavior. You never know what you're going to get from him. We brought this up in the past. There was a point where Kyrie Irving demanded a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Boston Celtics because he wanted to be the franchise cornerstone for a team. And in Boston, he was just that. He had a team of young stars who looked up to him and respected him, and still respect him, by the way. But after 2 seasons in Boston, he decided that situation wasn't for him. He decided to go to the Brooklyn Nets and team up with Kevin Durant. And in Brooklyn, every single year, it's been a different story. In year 1, he was dealing with an injury. In year 2, he was a part-time player and took a lot of personal time off. In year 3, he had vaccine drama. And in year 4, he recently got into some trouble over posting an anti-Semitic documentary onto his social media. But now he's back. The issue is, if you trade for Kyrie Irving, his contract expires after this year. So for all you know, he could get up and sign with another team in free agency. And he's already committed to his existing team before.
That scout, I joined him, but I shared it with some of my teammates as well as the organization and everyone else in Boston. You guys will have me back. I plan on re-signing here next year.
Boom!
So
And that didn't really mean much. But in 10 games so far, Kyrie has averaged 25, 5, and 4, showing the NBA that he is still one of the best, if not the best ball handler in the league. His $36 million cap hit is a lot easier to trade for than some of the more exorbitant contracts on this list. Now, some teams that would look to acquire Kyrie Irving is without a doubt the Los Angeles Lakers, but other teams aside from the Lakers include the Dallas Mavericks, who would love to find a spark to partner with Luka Doncic, and lastly, the Miami Heat, which is a team that would do anything right now in order to win an NBA championship. For the Lakers, a Kyrie trade would most likely mean bringing in a third team to dump the Westbrook contract and hoping that Irving fits with the Lakers roster better than Westbrook. As for the Mavericks and Heat, if they can bring in Kyrie, he automatically makes both teams serious contenders. Similar to the next player on this list, who's an elite shooter that any team would love to have, but there's just one problem. From the start of the 2019 season to the end of the 2022 season last year, Duncan Robinson shot an elite 41% from 3 on 8+ attempts per game. He earned himself the biggest contract ever in NBA history at the time for an undrafted player, signing a 5-year, $90 million deal to stay with the Miami Heat. But in 2022, Duncan Robinson had completely fallen off of the face of the earth, shooting a mediocre 30% from 3 and less than 40% from the field. With Max Strus and Caleb Martin emerging as solid rotational pieces, Duncan Robinson has lost his spot in the rotation, and currently the Miami Heat have nearly $17 million sitting on the bench just to cheerlead the rest of the roster, and that number increases by 2026. The Miami Heat will be looking to get rid of this mistake of a contract, but just because it was a mistake for the Heat doesn't mean he will be bad for whatever team trades for him. Robinson is a three-point specialist, and anyone who knows anything about shooting the basketball knows that shooters can be streaky, and if they mess up their shot in one game, they can just as easily get it right back in one game as well. Three teams that could acquire Robinson would be the New York Knicks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and if the Los Angeles Lakers want to take a huge risk and not necessarily have to part with any of their draft picks in any type of trade, including Russell Westbrook, they would be included as well, although I think it's very unlikely. Now, what do all three of these teams have in common? For starters, they're all in search of extra depth in order to make a playoff run, and secondly, they all rank bottom 5 in team 3-point percentage, with the Lakers and the Knicks being 1 and 2 on that list. Whoever acquires Duncan Robinson will need to get him out of that shooting rut in order for it to be a good trade, though. Unlike the next player on this list, who would be a welcome addition to any NBA team. Myles Turner is having a career season, averaging over 17 points, 8.5 boards, and 3 blocks on the best shooting percentages of his career. Turner is in the last season of his 4-year, $80 million contract extension that he signed at the end of his rookie contract. And now, after the Pacers are a surprising 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, Myles Turner's trade value is at an all-time high. The Pacers' window for contention might be a little closer than some anticipated, with Tyrese Halliburton breaking out and rookie Benedict Mathurin proving to be way better than any of us thought he would. But the Pacers feel that they can gain more by trading Myles Turner now, as opposed to keeping him on the roster next season by signing a brand new max contract. The most popular name in the Myles Turner race at the moment would have to be the Los Angeles Lakers, but the most realistic team he could be traded to would probably be the Los Angeles Clippers. For the Lakers, this trade would involve offloading Russell Westbrook's contract, but in order to acquire Turner, they need to add multiple unprotected first-round picks, something that Rob Pelinka has been hesitant to do so far, because in 2027 and 2029, I expect my Los Angeles Lakers to be the equivalent of dog on the basketball court. As for the Clippers, they can add more value without a first-round pick by adding one of their desired forwards, such as Robert Covington or Amir Coffey. But in order to make the trade go through, the Los Angeles Clippers would likely need to attach some sort of draft capital to Myles Turner. This trade in the long term could be something amazing or terrible, as Turner is an unrestricted free agent after this season, and without an extension for 2023, he could just leave in free agency. Similar to the next player on this list, except he's getting paid double what Turner is getting paid and is having the worst season of his career. In 2019, D'Angelo Russell signed a 4-year contract worth $117 million, and at the time he was an all-star, averaging 21 points, 7 assists, while shooting 37% from 3. Following a sign and trade that brought D'Angelo Russell to the Golden State Warriors, he was traded to the team that he actually originally wanted to sign with, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and afterwards we all expected him to create magic with Karl Anthony Towns, the #1 overall pick pick in his respected NBA draft. But now the year is 2022, and D'Angelo Russell as a starter is putting up 13.6 assists and a career-low 31% from three. Before this year, you could make the argument that Russell's scoring numbers went down as a result of being the third option on a team with Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. But now in a season where he's struggling to shoot the basketball and just score in general, it makes you wonder what happened to Russell in the offseason. D'Angelo is getting paid $31 million this season, and it's safe to say the next contract he signs won't be anywhere near the amount unless the Timberwolves trade D'Lo to a team that helps save his season. One flashy name you'll hear often is the Los Angeles Lakers, and as cute of a story it would be to see him go back to the team that originally drafted him, this would be unlikely. But the two most likely teams to acquire D'Angelo Russell would have to be the Washington Wizards and the New York Knicks. The Wizards just plain and simple need an upgrade over Monte Morris and their starting backcourt, and adding D'Angelo Russell could make a surprisingly good team even surprisingly better. As for the New York Knicks, Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes are splitting time in the starting backcourt alongside Jalen Brunson, and even adding D'Angelo Russell would give the offense two guards who can handle the basketball, but also give the Knicks more options off of the bench. I also am just trying to rationalize a D'Lo to the New York Knicks trade because typically the New York Knicks are where point guard careers go to die, and I can actually see this happening to him. I hope it doesn't. But the next player on this list has essentially been on the trade block for the entirety of his career. It wouldn't be an NBA trade deadline without John Collins' name just being brought up at least once now, would it? Before the 2021 season, the Hawks signed big man John Collins to a 5-year, $120 million contract, hoping that he and Trae Young would carry Atlanta into the future. However, with the emergence of fourth-year forward DeAndre Hunter and third-year big man Onyeka Okongwu, the Atlanta Hawks figure they are better off using the assets from a John Collins trade to build around Trae Young, as opposed to paying Collins over $25 million a year to average 12.5 points and 6 boards as a starting forward. Look, I'm not saying that John Collins has regressed, because to be honest, he hasn't. He just moved down as a scoring option with the arrival of DeJounte Murray, but regardless of that, it's not worth paying your third or fourth scoring option $25 million a season. Whoever acquires Collins will see his statistics take a huge leap when he's finally a primary scorer. And if any team is going to acquire Collins, it won't be the Utah Jazz, who reportedly turned down a 1-for-1 trade of Collins for Lauri Markkanen. Another team that has been heavily linked with Collins is the Phoenix Suns. The Suns have been looking to move on from Jae Crowder, and adding John Collins to the starting five next to DeAndre Ayton would make an already contending team even more versatile. The only problem with this deal is Phoenix is not wanting to take on the next 4 years of Collins' $120 million deal. Unlike the next player on this list, who has all the talent in the world and is on a contract cheaper than 99% of other players, but still cannot perform. James Wiseman was the second overall pick in the 2020 NBA draft, 1 pick after Anthony Edwards and 1 pick before LaMelo Ball. He was supposed to take the reins from Stephen Clay during the Warriors dynasty and was supposed to be breaking out in 2022. But for a variety of reasons, James Wiseman simply has not performed to the level that many have expected. In 2020, during Wiseman's rookie season, he had torn his meniscus, and after having multiple surgeries, would miss the entirety of the 2021 season. In 2022, Wiseman's comeback season, he's averaged less than 7 points, less than 4 rebounds, and averages just 13 minutes a game. And recently, he was sent down to the G League. James Wiseman hasn't been the dominant player he was hyped up to be as the second overall pick. And with Wiseman's rookie contract quickly coming to an end, the Warriors might be inclined to trade him for anything they can get before they let him walk in free agency. Bear in mind, historically, big men have taken a lot longer to develop than your average guard or forward, but the Golden State Warriors are in a very unique situation where they have a plethora of young talent in addition to proven veterans that they also need to extend. So Wiseman won't be on the radar for one specific team. If anything, all other 29 NBA teams will keep an eye on Wiseman. Firstly, because this is where you could get James Wiseman at a cheap price for trade, since he hasn't produced much during his first 3 seasons. Secondly, he's still young and has all the potential that he had when he was the second overall pick. Finally, teams are hoping a change of scenery in a less demanding environment might help James Wiseman become the superstar he seems like he's capable of being. Hopefully on a new team, James Wiseman can live up to the potential nearly every single NBA analyst said he had. Similar to the next player on this list, who was balling out, was brought in to save a franchise, but injuries ended up ruining any chance that he had. The Hornets are second to last place in the Eastern Conference, so holding on to nearly 33-year-old Wayne Gordon Hayward, who's getting paid over over $30 million a season and is contracted through 2024 seems useless. Hayward is averaging just over 17 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists per game, all on elite 3-point shooting. And instead of trying to make a late run, the team hopes to trade Hayward for draft capital or a few young pieces in order to build around franchise cornerstone LaMelo Ball. Like many other players on this list, Gordon Hayward is linked to the Los Angeles Lakers, but this time it's not an unfounded rumor. On Twitter, Hayward liked a tweet that mentioned the idea of trading Westbrook to the Hornets for Hayward and a few other pieces. Although Hayward might like the sound of that, his $30+ million contract might have a thing or two to say about that. Realistically, the Cleveland Cavaliers could be the best spot for an aging Gordon Hayward. The team doesn't seem to have a natural fit at the 3 position besides Cedi Osman and Karis LeVert, and adding Hayward to an already star-studded lineup could help push the Cavaliers even further into contending conversation. However, I don't think it's really necessary, and to be honest, I think the Cavaliers already have a good roster, so I highly doubt this could happen. Another team that could look to add Hayward would be the Atlanta Hawks in the form of a John Collins, Gordon Hayward player swap. Obviously, additional assets would need to be added for this to happen. This trade would be perfect for Atlanta because when Hayward's contract expires, that money will be opened up to pay DeJounte Murray, especially giving the Hawks a 2-year rental at the small forward position, similar to the next player on this list who's getting paid a bag and is a bucket off the bench, however, because of his contract cannot find a new team. Similar to guys like John Collins and Myles Turner, it feels like Eric Gordon is on the trade block every single season. In 2022, a nearly 34-year-old Eric Gordon is putting up 13 points and 2 assists per game on 35% shooting from 3 while playing 30 minutes per game. Not great, but not necessarily horrific either. However, when you consider Gordon is getting paid $20 million not just this season but next season as well, it becomes abundantly clear as to why no one is willing to take on Gordon's contract. That is, everyone except for a few choice teams. One of those teams obviously being the Lakers, but until they can find a way to dump Westbrook's contract, it will continue to be an unrealistic destination. Besides LA, the Knicks and Grizzlies are both popular landing spots for the 3-point specialist. The Knicks are just behind the Lakers for worst 3-point percentage in the NBA. Plus, they don't really have a true 2-guard with both Quentin Grimes and Evan Fournier splitting time at the position, so adding Eric Gordon would finally mean that the Knicks have a consistent face at shooting guard. As for the Grizzlies, they're the definition of average from 3 as they rank 15th in the NBA, but they definitely have the roster to maneuver a trade as Danny Green is making $10 million this season, however is yet to play a game so far. If the Grizzlies have their hearts set on Eric Gordon, all they need to do is package Danny Green with a few draft picks and EG is all theirs. Similar to the next player on this list who's making $10 million this year, is heavily targeted by teams but still hasn't played all season. Jae Crowder is the only player on this list not to play all season, and that's because the Phoenix Suns refused to extend Jae Crowder in the offseason and looked to trade him instead. Last season, Jae Crowder averaged 9 points and 5 boards a game, shooting 35% from 3. Crowder is owed $10 million this season, so any team that is up against the cap won't be able to make a move for Crowder. However, 2 teams that have been heavily linked to Crowder so far are the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. Both teams look to use Crowder in a similar role off the bench. The Bucks want to use him as a backup to Brook Lopez, who right now is the only stretch big on the roster. As for the Bulls, Vucevic and Drummond are both solid big men. However, similar to the Bucks, Nikola Vucevic is the only viable stretch big on the roster. So adding Jae Crowder off the bench would be a solid way to maintain their offense. Will Jae Crowder get traded? Who knows? But getting paid $10 million to not play basketball is a pretty sweet deal. Let us know if we left anyone off this list in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.